Hey, if you're getting this error, we cannot convert the value function to type function, and wondering what it means and how to fix it, well, this video is for you. Now, I'll be honest, this error message doesn't really say much, but we'll cover why it might be happening and appearing later on in the video. For now, we'll just worry about fixing it. So one possible cause for this problem is the privacy levels configured in Excel. And there's a few different ways to fix that. We can go to the Get Data tab and query options. We can then go to Global Privacy and choose to always ignore privacy level settings. This will apply to my whole machine. Alternatively, I can go to Current Workbook and Privacy and just apply it to the one workbook and choose Ignore Privacy Levels. So that's the first two options. The other options is to actually configure the right privacy levels for each of the different sources. I can do that under Get Data, Data Source Settings. And if I choose Current Workbook, I can change that from private to organizational. And I can do the same thing for the OData feed. And what we found is when the error happens, typically happens when the OData feed is flagged as private, it should really be organizational. If I make that change and try to refresh my report, it should work. Now let's dig a bit deeper and try to understand why this error is happening. So we'll go to the Data tab, we'll choose Get Data and launch Power Query Editor. What we'll find is we can actually see a few different errors warning little traffic symbols appearing on the report. And it's happening for internal budgets in our case and budgets here. So we know these are the ones that are failing. If I choose internal budgets, I'll get this step, Formula Firewall, Query Tracking Categories 1, Step Rename 1 is accessing data from a private source and can't be used together. Please recombine this combination. Now, the cause of the problem, this number one, this error message doesn't give you much. But the cause of the problem is we're trying to combine data. And if we step through the different steps, we can try to find where it's failing and try to learn more about what the problem is. It's failing right here when we're trying to merge two Power Queries together. And that is the first clue as to what the problem is. If you go back to the original part of the video where I configured the OData feed from private to organizational, we had the OData feed set to private. And when it's private, it used to mean that the data is private to my organization and you should only be able to combine private sources with each other. In reality, what's happening now is not just that private sources can't be combined with other private sources. The actual OData feed is the same across all these Power Queries, but it's basically flagged as private, so it's saying do not combine any private data with each other. And in this example, we're trying to pull the tracking categories to make sense of them and combine them with the budgets to pull a tracking category budget. And because both will be set private, although they're the same source, but essentially the Power Query that pulls the tracking categories is a separate Power Query from the one that pulls budgets. Power Query is saying I am not allowed to combine these two Power Queries together, and therefore it stops us. And that's partly why setting it to ignore, essentially ignoring the privacy firewall settings, or setting it to organizational will allow it, because if you set it to organizational, you're telling Power Query the data belongs to my organization, you can combine it safely. So that's the cause of the problem. The error, however, is entirely cryptic. Cannot combine, cannot convert function to type function. That absolutely means nothing to anyone. And you might actually get different types of messages that mean completely different things. They're worded completely differently. Essentially, the message we're getting is we're trying to pull a function to pull budgets, and it's basically failing because we've combined the sources incorrectly. The message is complete gobbledygook, But if we go through methodically and go through every single Power Query to try and find out where it's failing, we can then get a bit of an insight as to what might be causing the problem. And in our case here, it's the privacy firewall. I hope you found this video a bit enlightening, a bit interesting, and more importantly, I hope it fixes the error you're having. And I'll catch you next time. Take care.